We hear too many artists these days that make music of the time. They're not creative enough to create art that stands on its own. I think I'll give Isaiah Rashad that credit. He's able to do that very well. He is an acquired taste.
Yeah.
Period. To ask the question, is he a good rapper? That's not the right question, in my opinion. He's a good rapper. The question is, how good of a rapper is Isaiah Rashad? He's
So what do you think about the album? What are some of your takeaways from it?
Well, look, okay. I'm glad you asked me because first and foremost, this was like the first album that I did some live tweeting to, right? So I listened to the album, and I'm going
Fantastic.
through I'm
Fantastic.
going through yeah, man, thank you. So I'm going through the album in real time and I'm really like digesting the music. And what I can tell you is this. Um, First impressions for this album, The House is Burning by Isaiah Rashad, it really gave me the sense that Isaiah Rashad is growing musically because on previous projects from him, he had a very what I would call cohesive sound, right? His sound was very album-esque. When we talk about TDE, I really can think of a name like Kendrick, but when I say Kendrick, I mean like first album Kendrick, second album Kendrick, To Pimp a Butterfly, like where every song seemed kind of cohesive and a part of a story. I would say that is how I perceived Isaiah Rashad's last few projects, to be quite honest with you. And when it comes to this new album, I saw some standouts. I saw some joints that really like were outside of the box from his, when I'm really comparing it to what he's been putting out. You got the joint with Lil Uzi Vert from The Garden. And while that song didn't tell me that Isaiah Rashad is trying to be somebody else, I did see growth in terms of like maybe his sound being a little bit more bigger and a little bit more global than I even anticipated. I saw a couple of different R&B joints that, with SZA in Black, that maybe can have a little bit more fans come to his side, come to his world. You know what I'm saying? That's really the takeaway that I have with this album is that Isaiah Rashad has created this world, this atmosphere of his sound, and he's brought people into his world. And I think that there's a couple songs on here that really can get people who are not part of his world to have an easy introduction to come back to his other stuff. One of the better songs on this album that I thought, man, this is gonna be a joint that I'm gonna be playing for years. I already know. It's Headshots. Like Headshots to me is the epitome, and it really embodies what Isaiah Rashad has done his entire career, which is compose like incredibly thought-provoking, weird, unorthodox music, but it's done in a way that's so artistic that it can really it can last. It's one of those music that just kind of stands on its own, which really doesn't have any time limit. I give him that because not every artist is even capable of that, right? We hear too many artists these days that make music of the time, right? And it gets dated. As soon as the sound changes, as soon as the shift of today's music changes, they are no longer going to be relevant because they're not creative enough to create art that stands on its own. I think I'll give Isaiah Rashad that credit. He's able to do that very well. And so with that being said, this is not the best Isaiah Rashad album that I've heard. The Sun's Tirade to me as a body of work is much better than this. However, I believe this album was a great mix of, again, like I said before, songs that stand out that are not just that easily identifiable for Isaiah Rashad, and then songs that really stuck true to himself while still growing artistically. I thought that he did his thing on this. I mean, it's not, again, if I give this a grade, I'm giving this a B.
So what I find very funny and kind of frustrating is that I think TDE is one of those groups that before you even hit play, on an album by them, you automatically say it's good. It's almost like you force yourself to say that something that they dropped is good before you even hit play on it. And I think that that's what a lot of people did for this Isaiah Rashad album. I think to a certain extent, if Isaiah Rashad kind of dropped the ball on the album, there was still going to be people that were saying, you got to sit on it. You got to make sure you sit on it. Or people are going to say, oh, you know what? No, it's just that it's not your type of music. It's my type of music. I think TDE gets away with that a lot of times. Same thing with Dreamville. I said Dream Vision. Dreamville. He gets away with that.
Dream Vision doesn't do that. But
while other groups don't necessarily get that luxury. You know what I mean? Like if Rich the Kid and Jay Critch, you automatically assume it's trash. You're gonna be like, oh, it's Rich the Kid's label. Oh, Jay Critch, it gotta be trash because it's Rich the Kid. TDE gets the luxury of us being like, it's probably good because it's TDE. And so you kind of come to an album with that mindset. I think Isaiah Rashad's album is good. I wouldn't say it's great. I think it's a little overhyped, a little bit. But what I will say about the album is this. I think that first and foremost, the instrumentation on the album is fantastic. I think he was able to like garner up these old school hip hop feels with some therapeutic elements, while at the same time he was able to turn it up a notch in production on songs like From the Garden, on songs like What You Said. I really like that aspect. And then also his content. It was refreshing hearing him, you know, at the same time while he was bragging, it was kind of like talking about his come up story and just, you know, letting people know once again who he is, because you know outside of his music you don't really know who this guy is. He kind of lets you know on these songs, so it's kind of fun to try to figure out from track to track, oh, that's who Isaiah Rashad is. Now I'm gonna ask you this question because I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't. Is he a good rapper? I mean, I get it. He's a competent rapper. He's competent. But I think at times, a lot of times, he sounds dull. He sounds a little, dare I say, boring. He sounds a little incoherent. But he does it in such a good way that he gets a pass because he just does it so he's tastefully boring.
Here's what I'll say. I see you tap dancing like the late great Gregory Hines right now.
Weird.
You tap dancing, bro.
It's weird.
I'm mad. I have to reference. I'm mad. I have to reference Gregory Hines. Like, yo, there should be a new age person who tap dances. Like, I should be able to reference like somebody who's a young person who tap dances. But whatever.
Lil Uzi tap dance or something.
Yo, there should be a little somebody that tap dances right now.
Tappy.
Lil Tappy. Little tap. But no, I think you're tap dancing, but you're doing it, I think, in a good way. Because look, to ask the question, is he a good rapper? That's not the right question, in my opinion. He's a good rapper. The question is, how good of a rapper is Isaiah Rashad? He's met in my opinion, he met the good rapper benchmark a long time ago. He's clearly a good rapper.
He's a good rapper. I take that back.
He's clearly, it's not even debatable.
I was asking the question. I think he's actually a good rapper, but okay. I can see somebody saying they don't necessarily think he's good. I think you should think outside of the box with him.
I got you. So here's what I'll say about Isaiah Rashad. Like, he is an acquired taste.
Yeah.
Period. He is an acquired taste. And I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm not saying that as it's not, because it's not an insult.
I'm not
insult. And you know what's funny? Listen, I'll give you credit. On the last episode, we were talking about albums of the year, and I believe you said something about how this year has been. You said something like this year has been underwhelming, but it's more so been about albums that are acquired taste. Like, a lot of people have dropped albums that are just acquired taste. This album falls right in line with that mentality. Like, Isaiah Rashad is a good rapper. Now it's about, do you rock with him enough to really understand his potential? Because I'll be honest with you, artistically, he is next level when it comes to his ability to put together storylines, just his storytelling ability, put together different themes, different sound effects. The dude is an interesting guy. Like, I don't know him, never spoke to him, never had a convo. He's an interesting guy. Does it always come out the right way over his songs? Probably not. I'll give you an example. He dropped that song. He on the album, he has a song called Chad, right? I think that's the most like boring version of Isaiah Rashad that I just don't want to hear. Like, there's nothing compelling about the song. Like, he's not interesting on the song. I believe it's a little bit boring. As a matter of fact, if the song comes on, I'm going to switch it because I don't want to hear it. But if you're asking me to evaluate him as a rapper, like metaphors, cadence, flow, he's going to check a lot of boxes because he does that majority of the time.
I mean, I think
he does.
He uses, like, I'm trying to tell you right now, guys, that was one of the hardest albums I've ever had to rate. It was one of the hardest. I didn't look at anybody's opinion, by the way. I looked at nobody's. It was one of the hardest because I left it like, I don't know how I feel. Like, everything I'm supposed to like about a rapper, like, he doesn't do. I disagree with cadence and things like that. I think he has a good feel for the beat and he kind of listens to what the beat wants. But like I said, like, he has, think about what you said, very slurry deliveries, very erratic, very boring at times, but like, he does it so tastefully. Like, you add tastefully to anything and it works. Like,